Let's talk about quadratic equations. Now, if you want to pause this video so you can take these notes down, I greatly encourage you to. So to save on time, I'm going to go ahead and move on to an example. So I wanted to work just one or two examples. On this worksheet here, you see that A and B has two different looks, right? If you notice, A has three terms and B only has two. But we also see that on both terms, they have a leading degree of 2, so we know we have a quadratic. So let's work out this quadratic. Now, they have to be written in ascending order, so it means greatest to smallest. That means the degrees, right? And it needs to be set equal to 0, and they are. So there's multiple ways to solve factoring a quadratic. I'm going to teach you the AC method. Okay, so on this AC method, we notice that A is the leading coefficient, B is the coefficient on X to the first, and C is our constant. Once it's written like that, we are able to recognize it. So in A, we see that A is 1, B is -9, and C is 18. Right. The sign on C tells me if I add or subtract. Since this is a plus, we know we're adding. The sign on B is the sign we're going to want. So I'm going to take A times C, which is 1 times 18, and I'm going to list their products. So we already know 18, 1 times 18. We know 2 times 9 and 3 times 6. That's it. So now what we need to do is determine which set is the correct set. So we go back, it says the sign on C tells me that it's plus, then that tells me we're adding the product of A times C. That's going to give me a -9, which is my B. So let's do this. Well, if I have to add them and they have to be negative, then that means both signs are negative. Well, -1 and -18 does not give me -9. That's not the right one. -2 and -9 added together, that gives me what, -11. That's not right. What about -3 and -6? Well, -3 and -6 added together gives me a -9, so correct. This is going to be my set, and they're both going to have negative signs. If you want to pause this so you can write this down, I encourage you. I'm going to erase it. So one way to understand that adding of negative signs is your bank account. So if your bank account's in the hole $3 and you go spend 6 more, now you owe $9 to get that out of the red. All right. So AC method. We're going to bring down the original A term, first term, and we're going to bring down the original C term, which is our constant term, and we're going to replace the middle. Replace it with that -3, and don't forget the middle has a X on it. You see it, B has an X, so we got to put the X on there. Minus the 6X. So now we have our new middle. This is our new middle. Right? Now we got it written in 4 terms. Since it's written in 4 terms, what I'm going to do is I'm going to split them in half. Oh. Do something. Draw a straight line. There's a ruler right here I can use. Get this straight, and my apologies. I've done this before. Okay. I think this works this time. I'm not going to spend a lot of time. I've used it before. It wasn't that complicated. Anyways, so I'm going to draw a dotted line, splitting them in half. And I'm going to look at the first 2 terms, and I'm going to ask myself, is there something here that I can factor out of each? What I notice is that I have an x here and I have an x here, so I can factor out. It's the same as saying I'm going to divide by x. So if I take x out of two x's, it leaves me with 1, right? If I divide this by x, well, x goes into x and leaves me with just negative, right? So let me redo this again. I noticed both of them has an x, so I factored it out. When I factor it out, it's the same as dividing each term by that x. Since I got x squared divided by x, whenever we divide by like bases, we subtract the powers top minus bottom power. Leaves me with just 1x for the first. And then, of course, x goes into x one time. Okay, so over here, now on the next two terms, I'm going to automatically bring down the sign that's on that. If it's plus, I bring it down. So I know I automatically factoring out a negative sign. What else am I factoring out? So I got a 6 and an x, and the other one has just a 18. I know that 6 will come out of 18, so let's factor it out. So I'm going to divide this by -6 and divide that by -6. I'm going to go ahead and put the 6 here because it's I was factoring it out. Negative divides negative is positive. 6 goes into 6 one time, leaves me with x. Negative divides positive is negative. 6 goes in itself once, 18 3 times. Now, I notice I have this parenthesis that's identical to this parenthesis, so I can factor it out of both of those terms. When I do that, that's the same as saying, okay, I'm going to divide this term by x minus 3 and this one by x minus 3. And when I do that, they go into themselves. They go into themselves one time. 1 times at x, themselves one time, and then 1 times at -6. Now I have factored, and this is my final answer on factoring. And we'll do one more. On this other one here, it works out nice and pretty. There's a couple ways we can do this one here. One of the easiest ways is doing the perfect square by adding this 49 to the other side. Now I got 4x squared equals 49. And if I take the square root of both sides, or I can divide the 4 to both sides. Now, it's a couple steps you can do, and there's other ways to do it. We've applied the AC method, but we don't have the B term, right? We can do the parentheses, and there's other ways to do it. Let's just keep it simple. So let's go ahead and divide this by 4. Now I got x squared is equal to 49 fourths. And if I take the square root of this side, that's the same as saying x raised to the power of 2 root, right? So it's power over root, which gives me just 1. That's what we want. Now I'm going to plus or minus this other side because it's an even root. That's why it gets a plus or minus when I square root. Because what did we do to one side, we're going to do to the other. So once I've done that, the square root squared reduces down, leaves me with just x. I got plus or minus. I'm going to square root 49 over square root 4. Leaves me plus or minus. Square root of 49 is 7. Square root of 4 is 2. So I got plus or minus 7 halves. Now I want to write this in factor term. So I know each parenthesis is going to start out with that x. That's what we're equal to here, right? And what we're going to do is we're going to, let me come over here and write this. So I got x equals the positive 7 halves, x equals the negative 7 halves. Well, if I want it set equal to 0 so I can know my factor, and since this is positive, I subtract it from both sides, right? Which gives me x minus 7 halves equals 0. I have this one, since it's negative to both sides, gives me, and now it's in factor form. Thank you.